What's up, Cuzzy Wuzzies? You're listening to the Bay Ridge Boys, History Hyenas. Bad. What's up, everybody? Welcome to a new episode of the History Hyenas. I'm Chris Stefano, a.k.a. Chrissy Chlamydia. With me, Giannis Pappas, a.k.a. Yanni Chobani. We got a great guest today, superstar comedian, fucking Jimmy Muy Guapo Gaffigan.
Yeah, I prefer the nickname Godfrey.
Yeah.
I love Godfrey.
Jimmy Gaffigan's here. I call you Jimmy.
I'm Jimmy. I'm just, you text me, you call me Jimmy. That's what I was called as a little kid, Jimmy.
Jimmy? Anybody ever call you Jimbo?
Jimbo, Jumbo.
Yeah.
A lot of stuff. Whitey.
Whitey, yeah.
I was very much Whitey growing up.
Yeah. The History Hyenas, baby.
When you played basketball, like that was that was before your era. But whenever I went to a court, my nickname was either Bird or Whitey.
My nickname was
Whitey.
Yeah, Whitey or Bird.
Well, same thing. It's just they update the player. They used to call me Dirk.
Oh, Dirk.
Dirk Nowitzki.
Dirk,
yeah, he was the guy who was the. He was like.
Are you saying that we're old? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Well,
we're saying we're old as dirt.
No, Dirk.
I know. I'm joking.
Oh. Well, I mean, I am younger, but not that much. How old are you?
I'm 21.
Nice. Nice.
I'm 52.
You look fucking
How
great.
old is your mom?
My mom?
Yeah.
She's 55.
And single.
Yeah, and single. So if you're looking.
And she's Irish, right?
And she's Irish.
And she's got a real thing for lean cuisines.
Yeah, she loves lean cuisine. She's very Catholic.
Lean cuisines. There you go.
Smart ones.
Well, actually, be more specific. You're her favorite comedian.
Yeah,
really?
Remember 100%. I told you that on a show. Yeah, you're the favorite.
Oh,
she's going to go nuts.
Cool.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah.
I'm a big fan of your mom.
Yeah. She's she loves you so much.
Hopefully she likes my comedy, not just because I'm Catholic.
No, she does. She's like, he performed for the Pope.
I know.
Yeah.
I introduced my mother-in-law to the Pope. Talk about checkmate.
Yeah.
My mother-in-law is very devout Catholic, so it was like, there you go.
Are your kids Catholic too? You raising them Catholic?
I'm raising them Jewish, which is I just feel like it's a better career move, I think.
Yeah.
We do the whole shebang. And it's getting harder and harder.
I know.
It's like, it's not getting easier to be Catholic.
Yeah.
Every week you're like, really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Really? Is
Another
it just
one?
Everyone?
Yeah.
Is everyone the worst person on the planet?
For the first time when the New York Times article came out like a couple of months ago about like priest in my neighborhood. First of all, me and my friend Pat Finnegan, who I talk about a lot on this podcast, were combing through the list of priests, and we knew about 3 of those priests. Pat claims he never got hit. I'm like, I don't know, guy.
Well, by the way, it's like I know someone that got hit, and he didn't realize till he was in his 40s
that he got hit. Yeah.
So,
well, I tell
something
them,
to look forward to.
Well, I tell them, like, I remember I was about 12 years old, and Father Bill asked me to go upstairs and get another tunic for him because I was an altar boy, and I remember going up the stairs, and I just don't have a memory until I come back. So I don't know. Right. If Giannis says that it's because I got hit, but I don't know.
I think you got hit.
If it is.
Yeah.
See, Eastern Orthodox, you can get married, right?
Yeah, priests and the bishops and the patriarch. The top guy's actually called the patriarch.
Which is that's
just wrong.
Yeah. You can't do that.
Let's tear it down.
Yeah.
What did Ocasio-Cortez say about that?
Yeah.
So Jim, when we have guests on, we don't know. We love history. We love nature. Yeah. We go wild.
Well, let's just be honest. This is the biggest get we've ever got.
You're the biggest get we ever got.
Yeah.
And we appreciate
one of the greatest comedians of all time.
Standards.
Yeah, we appreciate you coming on because you're doing us such a favor and you're risking your career by coming on. So we appreciate the risk that you've taken.
Yeah.
I'm thrilled to be here. I'm not going to lie, but I have not listened, but I'm a fan of both of you guys. So it's like,
thank you.
And I like the fact
you'd be in the majority if you're not listening.
There's, there's a questioning. There's a questioning in both your comedy where it's like I watch you guys do your stuff and I'm like, all right, I'm glad someone's saying that. I'm not going to say it, but go ahead.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like that's what I love about comedians, particularly New York comedians, is that there isn't this necessary orthodoxy.
Right.
You can have different opinions. You can be great friends with someone that you disagree with, and that's what I love about it.
Yeah. Comedians are the only group, like, you could see like 4 comedians walking down the street, like, and they look like they have nothing to do with each other.
Yeah.
They wouldn't otherwise be hanging out. You're either like, they're either going to rob a bank in a movie or those are comedians.
Right.
Because it's like a housewife, a black kid, and then like a skateboarding 17 Pete Davidson smoking cigarettes.
Don't talk about Pete Davidson.
Yeah. 24-year-old hanging out with a 55-year-old.
I wish he would get some attention.
Yeah, I know. The kid is really, he's got a lot of
Struggling.
potential. He just can't get the media to notice him.
Did you see Michael Che get body slammed last night in WrestleMania?
No.
I don't watch. I feel weird that I don't watch wrestling or know anything about wrestling.
You shouldn't feel weird. You're grown up.
Yeah?
Yeah,
But it's
it is.
huge.
I feel like it's getting bigger and bigger.
Do your kids watch it or no?
No.
Wow.
They're not interested. They're
Yeah.
not interested. I mean, they are like, it's video games, but like the WrestleMania thing, it's
Huge.
huge.
Yeah.
I remember watching it when I was a kid. I remember my Monday Night Raw was on at 9:00, and my Aunt Eileen had cable, so I would go downstairs and watch Monday Night Raw with her, and she would smoke like a pack of cigarettes, watching the shirtless guys wrestle. And
She loved it.
my Aunt Eileen loved it because I think she was getting turned on by it. But
Like, I don't know who David Bautista is. Like,
I only know him from Guardians of the Galaxy.
Was he a wrestler?
Yeah.
He was a wrestler.
Yeah.
So he's like the next step of John Cena, right?
I believe so. Yeah.
So it goes The Rock, John Cena, David Bautista, right? Or there's other.
Mikey Suarez is saying, Mikey Emoji Face is saying no. What do we got, Mike?
Mikey Emoji.
Yeah.
He wrestled before Cena.
He did.
Yeah, he was between The Rock and Cena.
So who was the champ? Who won last night? Who was the champion?
Kofi Kingston.
See, I don't even know who that is.
And
Did
Seth
they
Rollins.
decide that? It's all scripted, right?
It's scripted,
It's theatrical, and it's but it's all kind of.
It's
I mean,
fake.
people love it.
Oh, they love. I mean, they sold up 90,000 tickets last night. They were
And-
selling tickets like Chris D'Elia.
And was it pay per view?
They have their own like channel now, so it's not pay per view.
And that's Vince McMahon, and he's just kind of like, it's very similar to like how we're just all manipulated constantly.
Yeah.
Vince McMahon, I think what is it, Zach? He's worth like 10 or 15 billion dollars.
$4 billion. I
$4
believe.
billion, Vince McMahon.
You know, when I was a kid, we thought wrestling was real. Nobody questioned it. So to your point, it's
3.3
kind of
bill.
like, it's a great example of how easy it is to manipulate people. Like everyone just thought it was real, and you go like they were still doing elbows like stomps, and you're going like, wow, that kid's a good fighter.
Well, that's why like with stand up, why it's good is because like even like guys like you and Seinfeld, it's like what they always say, like if you drop in on a set and you're not funny after 5 minutes, like you being there wears off. It's like then they're like, all right, we're not laughing at you.
Well, even the premise of this podcast, which I've listened to, which I haven't listened to, is, history is filled with lies.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? It's filled with kind of like George Washington never told a lie, which is obviously a lie.
Yeah. Paul Revere.
The sinking of the Maine, it's like the Spanish didn't do that. We did that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it's like, I think there is something about we're living in this age where we're kind of waking up to some of the delusion, but like then again, it's like we're always being kind of sold a bill of goods, right?
Yeah, that's why I've always been fascinated since I'm a kid, and even now more. Like I seek it out, like America's Enemies. Yeah. I like to watch documentaries or read books on their point of view, like because there's more truth in that, or maybe it's not truth, but it's like certainly not what we're going to hear. Like what did the Japanese think of us, or what did British students learn about the American Revolutionary War? Stuff like that.
I always thought like,
I'm gay.
Some things common sense can tell you. It's like they used to say Alexander the Great like led his troops into battle. You're like, did he really?
No, he did not.
Because like if you're in the front, those kids die.
Yeah.
Like nobody comes back with a sprained ankle from the front lines. Like
no.
He wasn't in the front. He was on.
But
he was in the back.
Caesar was fighting, wasn't he?
No, they say he was.
Spartacus definitely was.
But they say that's my point. Is like to your point.
Yeah.
Is like is that what they just told their scribe to write down? Like, hey, just put me in
we
the
have
front.
no proof of that at all.
Yeah. Because if you're in the front, like those guys got swords.
Yeah.
Right.
You're probably
and
going
it's
to die.
hand-to-hand battle.
Yeah, you're not going to like maneuver away.
You're not going to be like, I'm on a horse.
Yeah. Well, it's like even like we uncovered something. Giannis uncovered about like, everyone says like, oh, how horrible the Spaniards were, and like when white people came to America and killed Native Americans and murdered them. It's like, well, actually, it wasn't. It was just disease.
Right.
Like we don't control. Just the disease killed people.
It's an uncomfortable truth.
It's an uncomfortable truth where it's like, I know you want to vilify Columbus, but it's like really, he may have killed people. They all did. I'm sure Native Americans killed some of his soldiers too, but like really what killed them is the disease.
Yeah. Well, I think the Incas were essentially a military force.
Yeah.
And it was just disease. Like there's no way the Europeans would have beat the Incas if it wasn't for the measles.
The disease. The measles killed. You had a dilapidated army.
We've got the best diseases.
Dude,
because
that's one thing about whites is I'll put our diseases up against anybody. You know how much fucking HPV I have?
Yeah.
I'm riddled with warts.
Right.
Yeah.
And now you've got some British too.
Yeah. Now, I was lying. I didn't have sex with her. I hope to, but I don't think she's interested.
Yeah. She's not.
She was like, you funny, but you're very exciting. You're sweating. She told me I was sweating. Was it because I have on my leather jacket? Yeah. She's like, do you ride a motorcycle? I was like, I got a Jeep. She was like, then why do you have on that jacket?
Well, that's funny.
What's this? What is the backstory to this?
There's a girl yesterday. I met a girl, beautiful British girl.
Finally, you met a girl.
I met a girl.
Yeah.
Chris really struggles with that.
Yeah.
So it's good to know that you finally met one.
And Jim got out of his car while I was talking to her outside, and we had a conversation. So, she's like really beautiful, like very British girl. And she, we just talked all night, and, it just didn't go. I just don't think she's interested.
That's all right. You got to just put yourself out there. You know what? There's nothing wrong with trying.
Yeah.
And one day when you're not looking, then music plays.
Yeah. Oh, by the way, what was funny? Because remember when you said yesterday, you were like, on the show, you were like, oh, that your wife was the first woman you ever kissed. And you're like, no, I'm just joking. Upstairs, she was like, I don't think he was joking.
No.
She thought, she was like, I bet you that's the first.
Because it was like, I'm such a white bread guy. And this audience, like, they were looking at me like I was this piece of white bread. Well,
they were so
toast.
woke, that audience.
And so, like, they're like, well, I don't know who was the question was like, who did you kiss? And I said, the first woman I ever kissed was my wife. And everyone in the audience believed it because I'm like this pale white guy. They're like, you know what? He's a Christian.
Yeah.
Yeah. She believed it. She was like, I think he was lying about that. I was like,
really?
No, he was. Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Then
it's so interesting to be this vanilla. Yeah. Like it's because no one is as vanilla as people think they are. No. It's just insane.
Yeah.
But I kind of enjoy it. I'm like, all right, maybe. Yeah. You go ahead, think I'm innocent, and then I'll kill you.
Then she asked me, because she's just so clueless with comedy. She was like, because she asked me if I still had a day job, and I said no. I do comedy fresh. She goes, does Jim still have a day job? And I was like, no. And then I just showed her you, and then she's like, oh, he's pretty massive. I was like, yeah.
I love how clueless the general public is.
Well, she's British, she was like,
yeah, but we're still, no matter, even the highest, like Jim's at the highest.
Well, even like Jim, remember we went into Union Hall yesterday, the guy was like, who are you on the show? And then you were like, yeah, I'm on the show. He's like, what's your name? It was like,
comedians,
so stupid.
Like the general public, like whenever anyone asks me about my skits, I love
they don't know what's
sketch.
going on.
Yeah. Are you going to put that in your skit?
Yeah. It's like, so I'm going to do.
I'll put it in my high school skit.
This mundane conversation that I'm having with you on Long Island.
When you were talking about like, like people that are doing things bad, like, so like you were talking about how like the Europeans, like there's disease and stuff like that. But like when I was in Japan, I was so fascinated that like the history of Japan is such that like in the 1640s, they were like, all right, all the Europeans out, get out.
Right.
And then for 200 years, they're like, nobody can come in. If someone would float up and accidentally, they just murder them. They're like, just all these foreigners out. And then in like the 1860s, they're like, all right, we're gonna these Westerners have guns. We're gonna like we're gonna compete. And then by like 1905, they took over Taiwan. 1910, they kicked the shit out of Russia. And then it's just like, then they take Korea. Like they just kicked ass so quickly.
Yeah.
And I think some of it is just in like, some of it is that Shintoism. Yeah. It's that belief that we're related to the emperor who is God. So therefore we are God. Right. So like, it's like we even live in this age where like like, you know, master race stuff. Like we think of that as World War II, but it's still kind of brewing around. But like, it's still kind of like something that like people are dealing with, and that like I think we're naive to think that stuff is over.
Yeah, and you know what's ironic about it too is that it's the antithetical to what's healthy for your genetic code.
Absolutely.
Like the more diversity you have in your genetic code, the
better immune system,
healthier immune system, you know. But yeah, we loved it. Greeks are like, we inbreed. It's like, Greeks want to marry Greeks until the baby's born just one block of feta cheese with an eyebrow.
That's what I'm interested in. I mean,
because you can tell that you're inbred because your eyes are too close together.
Yeah, my eyes are way close together.
That's an inbred.
We say that I look like John Stamos if he had special needs.
Special needs Stamos is what we call him.
so, but wait a minute. Like, that's the other thing that I think is really interesting is... So I did this show in Barcelona. I love doing international shows. Barcelona. And I'm doing a show in Madrid. This is because I know you guys have a lot of listeners in Spain. And
we're actually, what are we, the 20th biggest podcast in Libya?
No,
really?
Liberia.
Sorry,
huge in Liberia.
Top 20.
That's a lot of former American slaves.
Yes.
There you go.
But the thing in Spain, like, and I've been to Spain before, but even when I was in Athens, it's a different thing. But like in Spain, they took all the gold from Central and South America. They're like, we're going to take all this gold. Yeah. We're going to take it back to Spain. And you go to Spain and you're like, what'd you guys do with the gold? You know what I mean? I know you built a navy and like, whatever, the Queen of England kind of kicked your ass. But like, what I think is so amazing is these great societies, these great cultures, like it's just a generation or two that kills it. And by the way, I mean a generation like or two, meaning like a couple hundred years. It's like Spain was kicking ass. Yeah. And now it's not. Yeah. Yeah. Greece, obviously, and I'm saying this also because you're Greek and you're 2 feet away. Amazing culture.
Yeah. Long time ago. We're like the Al Bundy of countries.
Yeah. But huge. Yeah. Like killing it. Yeah. So, like enough where the Romans worshipped it. Yeah. And then it's like...
And if you don't,
what happens?
People think like that fate's not going to touch America, and it certainly 100% is.
Yeah, because it's a finite. Yeah, everything has a peak. Everything rises, peaks, and falls. And you can just like, you know, over in Asia, and even the Asians and South Asians that come here, they're majoring in STEM, biology, engineering. And you talk to kids who were born here, and they're like, "What are you majoring?" They're like, "I'm an English major." Yeah, you're like, so you're majoring in the language you learned at 4 years old.
Mastered.
Yeah.
Well, that's
how we're going to beat the Chinese.
Even like with culture and stuff, like it's fascinating where it's like somebody will be like, I stand by my culture. And it's like, really what your culture is though, buddy, is just whoever conquered whatever country you're from just instituted their rules and their ideas, because your great grandmother probably would be fucking vomiting if she saw you eating that kind of food or having your hair that way, because it's like, that was the enemy. What are you doing? So it's like this whole, it's fascinating to me when these kids, these millennials are like, that's my culture. You're appropriating. It's like appropriating what? What do you even know what the fuck you're talking about? Right. I don't think you do.
No, it is all a blur, right?
Yeah, of course.
It's all a blur.
Of course.
But the Greeks really gave you guys civilization.
Everything.
Yanni's about the Greeks.
Everything.
So the Greeks gave us everything.
Right?
Yeah, that too. Which is nice.
What was the
it's recreational?
What was the army that there was a legion of the Greek army that it was all gay men, or not men. It was all guys who would have.
I think
sex.
They were called the Hyenas Papas.
Yeah, I think they were just called the Kiev Brigade.
The fucking Team Kiev, where they would bang each other in the ass and fall in love with each other. Because their whole mindset was, if I love the man sexually and romantically, I'm fighting next to him, I'll do anything to protect him.
I think this is just a porn you watched. Yeah. I don't think
is
this really true?
It's true. Yeah. There was
I was hanging out with Mateo Lane once, and
that kid's a piece.
And then I don't know. Yeah. That kid is a fucking piece.
He is a piece.
What a bod.
But yeah, there was an elite Spartan force, and they were all lovers. And the point was like they were vicious, but the point was like they loved each other so much, like they would bang to bond. Spartans.
And so what, so that was just kind of a cultural thing, because, some of these guys were like not gay, and they're like, well, I guess this gets me ready for the battle.
Well, but that's like,
you know what I mean? Like that
right now, some actors, some porn actors who are in gay porn are not gay guys. They just get paid a lot more money.
Yeah.
Yeah. You believe that?
Yeah.
You believe that? You suck a dick, you dick sucker. No, it is, but like some of it is culture. So like that would lead you to believe that people aren't born gay, that you can be culturally manipulated.
I think both are true, for sure.
I think,
And not only culturally manipulated, you just choose it and be like, you know what? I'm a curious kid. I want to try this out and then like it. But like I always think it's funny when you think about the gays in the military debate here. It's like it never happened before. You're like,
oh, that's a great point.
Yeah, Alexander the Great conquered the whole world.
Bisexual.
And it's like, yeah, thank God there was no gays in the military during that time.
Yeah, what about Nero? Just fucking taking guys off the street and cutting their balls off and making them eunuchs.
I mean, Nero was a wild kid.
Nero was a fucking... If you want to listen to any episode of our podcast, listen to Nero Was Wild.
Yeah.
Nero, huh?
Emperor Nero was the most nuts man you'll... Okay, so he took a eunuch. He took a guy off the street, cut his balls off, made him a eunuch, and then got married to him. He wanted to marry him, but he was the Nero was the groom, and the eunuch was the wife. And then he divorced that guy or killed him. And then like a year later, did the same thing to somebody else. But then Nero was the wife.
Yeah, Nero wanted to be the
bride.
People change. People evolve. You know, who you are when you were in your 20s is different from your 30s. What you're into. I used to smoke cigarettes. I don't anymore.
Yeah. You cleaned up.
Japan must have been fascinating because I come from a neighborhood. Like, you know, my boy Patty Finnegan's, Patty Fly Balls, and Chrissy Worm. These are like my actual real friends. Like, they still will eat sushi because they think Japanese food is the food of the enemy.
Oh, yeah. No, it's fascinating.
So they would be like, yo, was Gaffigan in enemy territory?
Like hearing some of that Japanese history is just fascinating. Like, you know, the shoguns and like the emperor related to God, which is not that rare.
Right.
But like the 8 corners of the world, they were like, we're taking over. They had a plan. There were like people that wrote books, how we're going to take over the world. And like the Western world's like, like we didn't pay attention at all. But like they went into Korea and a shogun died in battle and they retreated in like I want to say the 1500s.
Mm-hmm.
And they cut off all the soldiers that died, they took their ears, and all the Koreans that they killed, they took their ears, and they brought them back, and they're pickled in Kyoto. I swear to God.
That's so you saw a 1500.
I didn't see it. I kept bringing it up to our Japanese tour guide, and he's like, I don't know what you're talking about. So like maybe it is myth, but like that's the story that I had.
Ears?
Yeah.
Isn't that amazing?
Do you feel like there's any like lingering resentment against Americans in Japan, or you didn't get that vibe at all?
No, I felt like, it's interesting going to all these different Asian countries, but some of it is I end up talking to expats, who are there, whether they're British or American or whatever, and they have their own interpretation of things. So like the expat community in Thailand, because of the sexual stuff, is viewed differently. And so like the expat community in Taiwan is viewed differently than even in Japan. Now, like in China, I think if you talk to like an expat, they're like, all of this is revenge for the Opium Wars.
Mm-hmm.
Like what went on, that they had this great culture and the British just were like, here, smoke. And just, addicted a generation took over.
I love the way the British did it, too. The way they did genocide and enslave people, with class, though. Hello.
Yeah.
Here, we're going to drink tea and then murder all of you.
Yeah.
But like the English, what an amazing, by the way, you look at the English and you look at the Japanese, these island people, right? And they, I think the fascinating thing about the British is how they've retained that, like, culture is very important to them. But, like you move to the UK after a generation, you're British.
Yeah.
Whereas you move to America, like maybe the first generation, they don't teach the language, but the second generation, they're like, I got to relearn what my grandpa knew. And the British, it's like, because they controlled history, I think a lot of these stories are not out there. And so like the resentment that America encounters worldwide, I'm kind of baffled because compared to the British,
That's a great point, actually.
we're doing, 40 years before that
That's a great point. I never thought of that.
is amazing.
Yeah.
And some of that is controlling the narrative.
Yeah.
I think the British were like mastered. I mean, they went into India and they chopped off silk weavers' thumbs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we're like, you guys want to buy Belfast linens? You know what I mean? Like shit that would just freak you out.
Murder all of them, but also teach them cricket so they can be thankful.
Yeah.
But what the Japanese did in the rape of Nanking.
Oh my God. The rape of Nanking. Yeah. It's
Right.
crazy.
And so but the British did that, but I don't think it's in the history book.
Yeah, they probably just cricket. It's just remember cricket.
Oh yeah. Well,
You know
it's
what I
like
That's a great point.
Well,
'cause
even with the rape of Nanking and like some of the atrocities that like the Japanese did to their own people and to the Chinese and to our soldiers, like when you think about World War II, obviously the fucking Holocaust was a way bigger problem, of course.
Yeah.
But it's like people are always like, they never think about anything. Like Japanese have always been our friends. Like no.
Well, it's interesting.
Yeah.
I think it's fascinating. Going to Japan versus going to Germany. Like you can't walk 5 feet in Germany without a plaque, kind of like this self-acknowledgement. I'm sure like to Jews, it's not enough, but but compared to the Japanese, it's just a different culture, how they digest their history.
Right.
And by the way, it's not like when I was in Japan, granted, I was there like 5 days. It's not like when I was in Japan, I was like, these people are like, we're coming back.
Yeah.
It's none of that. It's like, it's fascinating. It's fascinating to think that but again, I think some of that is propaganda. These people in Germany and Japan were brainwashed.
Mhm.
Oh,
right?
sure.
Yeah.
They're just like any other people that were just sold a load of shit.
But just a footnote, what you said, the Japanese kind of were as bad in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
As the Germans, the rape and what they did to the Chinese was brutal.
But I'm saying in the history books, you only think about the Holocaust, or if we talk about what Stalin did to his people, nobody knows that Stalin killed more people than Hitler, because the narrative is Hitler's the worst. He killed all the Jews, which is all true and horrible. Yeah. But like Stalin, how many? I think the facts are Stalin killed more than Hitler did.
Yeah,
definitely.
But nobody knows that.
Yeah. Well, by the way, and I don't know if I mentioned this to you, is, there's a World War II museum in New Orleans, which is amazing.
Really? I would never think in that place.
I know. Well, I think they had a lot of ship stuff built there. Ship stuff. That's a technical term. But, when I think of as someone who loves history and growing up and what I was taught, but I think even from a historical perspective, it's like the Russians won World War II. They did it,
of course,
in a way that was an incredible sacrifice. And it's like they had done it before with Napoleon, but also just the sacrifice that the Russians, in sheer number of people,
20% of Russian boys between 19 and 22 or something like that were killed in that time period, in that 4 year. So it's like, if you were you think about that, you had a fucking 80% ish chance of living.
Think about how many women there was.
Yeah,
you could get a couple of them.
Yeah, it's fucking whores everywhere.
We talked about that before. It's like any point in Russian history always seems to come with and millions of people died.
Yeah,
unbelievable.
Millions.
Supposedly when Stalin and Churchill were negotiating, Stalin would kind of mess with Churchill and be like, "Oh yeah, I killed 2 million people."
Yeah.
Whereas Churchill was like, Churchill did some dirty shit too.
Yeah, sure.
But Churchill was like, I don't want anyone to know that I starved people in India.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
The British style. They had I think a lot of it is the way the WASPs kind of do it. They do it with a straight back, very regal. They don't murder in a brutal way. They don't make noises. They just go, bring him in. Shoot him, quiet. It's very demure murder.
Yeah.
I saw this thing about how even because that the Western Hemisphere, all of continental North America was at one time called Florida. Isn't that ironic? The whole it was all called, because it was Spanish. It was Spanish territory. Columbus came here and claimed the whole shebang.
So everything was Florida.
Everything was Florida.
Hilarious.
And everything was called Florida. And then the Spanish had a king, right? See, there's Florida. The Spanish had a king that was like 16,
Right.
and the French and the English were like, hey, we're gonna set up like, so in St. Petersburg, not St. Petersburg, somewhere in Florida, there was a Spanish colony that
St. Augustine?
St. Augustine.
Yeah.
And St. Augustine, that cultural experience was completely different from the Puritans, which, by the way, I think is all propaganda. Is that, you know, like the Spanish, there were the Irish, there were the slaves, there were, you know, not the slaves, there were people of African descent, and it was all a mix together. And the English and the French went in there and killed them. And then they were like, here's how we're going to do it.
Well, we just learned something today, too. And again, things about history, it's like it doesn't discount anything because it's still brutal. But we just learned a fact from one of our listeners that only 1.6% of the U.S. population, what year was it?
Only 1860, the height of slavery, 1.6% of the American population owned slaves. Only 1.6%.
So that still doesn't, you know, it's still a lot. But it's like you would think everybody in the South owned slaves. And it's like if you were, you know, running, or if you were, you know, black and you were going to be a slave, and it's like it's just not true.
Oh, that's interesting, because I think the perception is any Southern white owned a slave.
But it's not true.
Wow.
Because think about, you'd have to have money to own slaves. So a lot of people didn't have money down there. So, I mean, they probably wanted to, but they didn't. You know, again, it doesn't discount anything, but it's like, now I feel like we live in a time where you can't even say that without someone being like, well, what are you trying to say? It's like, I'm not trying to say anything bad about slavery. I'm trying to say it was horrible, but I'm also telling you that there's fact, there's numbers, and there's facts.
Right. Which, by the way, like when we were doing that podcast last night, and there were some of the stuff was coming out. Like a big thing I believe is that there's racial stuff, obviously, but it comes down to class. Like, you know, when Jordan was talking about working in advertising, I'm like, of course you worked in advertising. Yeah. Because it's like, I think that's the deciding. That's the great. You peel away all these layers of you know, bigotry, and some of it is institutional, I think, but like it's all class. So like the whole thing is like, you know, slavery, it's like it's like we got these poor white people in the South. It's like, let them think that they're better than these people. Right. You know what I mean? It's all about class. That's why I'm running for senator.
And you're going to get my vote.
Yeah. Well, nowadays, and I think, you know, I think the door's wide open. If any of us wanted to run, I don't think anyone would go like, hey, that's odd. I think they go, you know what? He's different. He's an outsider. Yeah. Let's go for him.
Yeah. Well, now, comedians.
We're not going to go back. Like, we'll never have, like, Donald Trump has certainly brought entertainment to the White House. So a comedian.
Don't talk about my president.
He's funny, dude. When he posted when he posted the meme of Joe Biden rubbing Joe Biden, I mean, he's doing jokes constantly.
I think there's an inherent, he has a manipulation ability. I don't know if that's the word, but like he knows what's going to work.
Yeah. Trumpy?
That nobody else knows. Like most people are like, this is going to backfire. And he's like, don't worry.
Well, you know, he's been media trained his whole life. Like he's been a star and been trying to get in the media and work with gossip columns since he was like in his early 20s. Mm-hmm. So he knows better than anyone, I think, the weaknesses of the media and how they go for hyperbole, they go for sensationalization, and he kind of uses it against them.
When you were in Thailand, did you see any ladyboys?
I did not.
Oh, no?
I was kind of disappointed.
You didn't push it to the limit?
Brody Stevens, the great late Brody Stevens, funniest Instagram clip. He said he pushed it to the limit in Thailand.
He's like, I pushed it to the limit.
And then
like, I explored the ladyboy culture and I pushed it to the limit.
Little Esther was like, what do you mean? He's like, I pushed it to the limit.
He's like, let's just say I pushed it to the limit
in Thailand with the ladyboy culture.
I was with my family. I mean, by the way, Thailand, fascinating. You know, you go to China and there's the 3 T's you can't bring up.
What?
Right? Taiwan, Tibet, and Tiananmen Square. And then you think, like, as Americans, you think, oh, wow, there's this restriction. There's this government influence. And by the way, they have a rating scale of behavior for individuals. There's facial recognition. It's like, it's stuff that freaks you out. And then we went to Thailand, and Thailand, there's, it's a royalty, right? It's a feudal system. And there's billboards up of the king around, and you're like, what is that guy in a movie? And they're like, no, that's the king. And they're like, can't talk about the king. And you're like, we can't talk about the king. They're like, you can't talk about that. Can't bring up King and I. And you're like, well, that seems silly.
Yeah.
And then you go to Singapore and you go, and they're like, you can't chew gum. And you're like, it makes communists trying to appear like rational adults.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? It's like
You can't chew gum in Singapore.
You can't chew gum.
What's the reason behind that?
Yeah.
I think it's filth.
It's a clean city, right?
It's
Singapore?
a clean city, but I mean, so is Seoul, so is Tokyo.
Yeah.
But and again, I was in Singapore 2 days. What do I know about Singapore? Nothing.
Yeah.
But it's like that's pretty weird.
Yeah.
I mean, that's pretty strange. You can't chew gum. Prostitution, there's some prostitutes bouncing around. I'm like with my kids, I'm like, don't talk to that lady. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's not like it's rampant, but it's like Singapore's like Vegas, where they're like, you know what, let's get rid of gum.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And in Japan, aren't you not allowed to talk on the train?
I don't know. I wasn't on the train. Japanese culture, very interesting. Like, the cabs, they open the door for you. You don't open the door.
They get right out and open.
No. There's a lever on the inside where the door opens. And then
Interesting.
There's a lot of culture of like, put the card down there. Like, essentially, I don't want to touch you, white beast kind of stuff.
Interesting.
Wow. But it's fascinating. Korea, Japan, everyone's very dolled up, like dressed up, like you're like the bouncer and he looks great, and it's not like he's at a nightclub. You know what I mean?
Right. He's just
I guess a bouncer's a bad example.
It's fascinating because you've been everywhere. You've kind of, you think you've been like all over almost every place. Every continent.
I mean, I wish. I haven't been to South America. I want to go to India. I want to go to South America.
Do you have your fan? You think you have fans there?
I don't, probably not. But I mean, India.
You have fans in fucking Taiwan.
Yeah.
India, the unifying language is English. But I think what I had heard is that, there's good comedians that are Indian, so they don't need.
Name one.
I don't know. No, but
kidding,
like,
I'm kidding.
But
Hassan Minaja.
No, but like,
yeah.
So they don't, and some of it is the economy of these places. Supposedly in like, I wanted to go to the Philippines and it didn't work out. But like, supposedly the Philippines, like, people can't like, whereas in Singapore, I think the ticket was $100. Whereas in like the Philippines, it's like 10. And if you're trying to pay for a flight there, that's a lot of money.
Holy shit, $100.
Do you know what I mean? So it's like, but it's international shows. I performed in Athens. I said hi to all your family. And but did I email you?
You did. You told me about it. Yeah,
it was amazing. Yeah. And because most of the audience, you do these international shows, and some of the audience is expats, and some of it is, say, people that studied in America or studied in Canada or something like that. But in Athens, it was a lot of Greeks that spoke English as a second language, didn't necessarily study in the U.S. I mean, obviously, the Greek and American community is very close. Everyone has a relative there or here. You know what I mean? But it was pretty interesting. Like, it's like that's definitely a place. For Hyenas, and like, you have that character, but I think you said like that character might not work in Greece.
Right. Yeah, it's like a love.
People want to kill him in Turkey. He can't even go over there. There's Turkish people that send him death threats.
Well, no, actually, Greeks. I've gotten Greek death threats from that character. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, because they just Greeks are very prideful.
Yeah,
you probably got that.
Yeah.
And they just feel like the character makes Greeks look bad because I kind of, the character is all the foibles of Greek culture,
right,
wrapped up in one.
Well, and you're such like an international comedian, like you got fans all over the world. Have you ever shown up to a country or city where like just majority of the audience didn't speak English and you just had a really tough time?
Well, I mean, I think there's different, and I appreciate you saying that, but like, I'm just doing it because I like to travel, but like, It depends on the.
No, but you're selling tickets. I mean, you're playing.
Kid moves tickets.
Jimmy
Jimmy Gaffigan
let me
moves
tell you about
tickets.
fucking Jimmy G. The kid does not have a day job. You dumb British bitch.
No, but like
Kid fucking sells tickets.
it depends. Like I think performing in the UK is weirder than performing in
Interesting.
Copenhagen.
Wow. What do you think?
Because I think that in Copenhagen or Athens, people that are going to learn English have consumed American entertainment, whereas the UK, they have their own culture. Like,
Right.
I think like what works, I mean, not to get too nerdy, but like, I think the British love super intellectual
Mhm.
and they love American anger.
Right.
So they love Bill Burr, they love
Yeah.
Bill Hicks, they love Lewis Black, but like an observational guy like me, it's not as like they've got their own version of it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I think, but other countries where they don't
Yeah.
do subtitles. So like Scandinavia, they just put the American shows on. They don't do subtitles. Whereas in France and Germany, they would dub them. There's
Right.
60 million people. Why not dub it? You know
Of
what I mean?
course. Might as well. Well, yeah, because I've told you honest, and anytime anybody asks, like, who's your career? Who do you want your career to get to? And it's always you, because I see like how you take your family everywhere and like that experience. Because I got a 3-year-old daughter. I'm always thinking about like that experience for your kids must be like fucking nuts.
It's amazing.
And beautiful. It's like I would argue, like, I know you said it was spring break, but like taking your kids to those countries, even taking them out of school, if you had to, would be more educational and better for them as humans than fucking learning algebra. Like, nobody gives a shit.
I think so. I mean, I think that's why I also want to go, because there's moments like in Thailand where we're like driving through Thailand and I'm like, I take my phones away and I'm like, look out the window. And
Hell yeah.
They're like, what?
Yeah.
And I'm like, yeah, this is,
Yeah.
Newark is pretty nice compared to this.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like, by the way, no criticism of Newark, but you know,
Good city,
that's
Newark.
the point.
You're playing the
It's
Prudential
like-
Center.
It's like people, in some of these countries, it's like, wow.
Yeah.
It must be fascinating for your kids, like when they come to work with you and you go into a arena where the Bucks play.
Yeah.
You're like, Daddy's going
it's
to work.
insane. It's insane.
Yeah, they go back to school.
But they, like
how's your dad's truck route?
Yeah.
they have, they have no idea, and then they have
Well, they don't
an
even think
idea.
you're cool.
And
probably.
then they're kind of like, my 13-year-old son's like, who's really funny.
I was going to say that kid is hilarious when you put him on Instagram.
he's really funny.
Yeah.
And so like I have the, but it's weird because like my dad was like a small town banker. It's like you guys, there's nothing prepare you to be a parent who's in the entertainment industry unless were your parents in the entertainment industry. So it's like it's weird.
Yeah.
You go into parent teacher conferences and they're funny and you're like, I want them to learn how to read.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's like, you mentioned like, your boy on Instagram and your kids on Instagram. When my daughter was first born, I put a picture of her on Instagram and my mother was like, you can't do that. You can't put your children on Instagram. And then I was like, look at Jim Gaffigan's Instagram. It was just like your kid doing something funny with like sucking a noodle. And she's like, oh, it's all right.
Yeah, she loves it.
Yeah.
Right
by
away,
the way-
she's like, it's all right.
Yeah.
By the way, I think that judging from your daughter's personality, she probably loves it.
Yeah.
She loves it. And you know what? I don't just personally like me, because I only got one kid. And
then you don't have to pay her either.
exactly, I'm going to keep all that money. If she goes viral, that's fucking nice check
Yeah,
for
let's
dad.
be honest. The kid moves tickets.
Yeah.
Your daughter gets likes.
My daughter moves tickets.
Yeah.
But I got a group chat with my mom, my dad, my stepmom, my daughter's mother, and my daughter's grandmother on her mother's side, and I send a video to that group chat, and they all have to approve it
Right.
before I post it,
Right,
Because
right.
I don't want anything to be like, oh, what? No, everybody's like, okay,
right.
this is okay
Yeah.
to
Wow.
post.
That's like the Stefano legal department.
That's the Stefano
Yeah.
legal
It is.
department.
You gotta
And
send
the
it,
only
yeah.
time, if somebody if my dad's like, I don't think so, I'm like, why don't you just go gamble my money and not
Well, you
right
know,
back
the
to
weird-
the group chat,
There
Tony
is
Balls.
something- there is something strange because like there was like I remember I was debating it. I was like, this is, you know,
Something with your kid.
yeah, it's like, and I've met people and they're like, I would never, you know, she's British, this friend of mine, and she was like, I would never have a photo of my children at a premiere. And I'm like, wouldn't it be fun for them? And but like the thing is like there's a big difference between full on Kardashian,
Sure,
and then your kid gets to see a Harry Potter movie for free.
Yeah. Gets to meet Harry Potter's at the birthday party.
Right. It's like, I'm not Tom Cruise.
Right.
No one's stalking us.
But you also play it that way, which I admire. You kind of, you downplay everything. Like you wouldn't know, like you don't act like, Jim Gaffigan.
You don't act like you made $30 million last year, Jimmy. Let's see you coming in here with a fucking t-shirt from Target. You got $30 million in the bank easy.
This is a free gift.
Let's be honest, Jimmy.
The kid moves fucking tickets.
Kid's got some fucking money.
I mean, you're one of the biggest comics in the world.
I just want to help people, you guys. I just want to get out there and help people.
Yeah, this kid's not flying Delta.
Yeah, but that's admirable. Do you feel like that helps with the comedy to be the perennial underdog? Like it's beneficial because you don't want to get up there, right? Because if you're there, like, what do you complain about?
Well, you know, I mean, I think there is something about having children that keeps things real. I mean, look, I'm a guy who doesn't want to go outside. Like I was 5 minutes late to meet you guys, and I don't live that far from here.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of like, I got to put on pants. So it's like being a parent, you got to do stuff you wouldn't normally do. Right. You're like, you got to talk to people you wouldn't want to talk to.
Yep.
And like as comedians, we don't like people to tell us things to do. And so as you get older, you kind of eliminate, you're like, all right, that person's a douchebag. I'm just not going to show up when they're here. But like when you have a kid, you're forced to do that, which is good for comedy.
Interesting.
Right.
That's very interesting. Yeah.
So it's an indirect. And, you know, by the way, Seinfeld even said that to me. He goes, oh, you travel with your kids. You're so lucky you get all that material. And I'm like, yeah, I never really thought about it like that. I mean, my kids just think I'm just in a bad mood. That's
interesting because you're essentially saying, like, as comics, we don't want to do things we don't want people telling us to do, but when we do them, we benefit by getting material out of it.
Right. It's like, it's, you know,
that's interesting.
Some of the comedy comes out of anger. Yeah. Right. It's just like, can't believe this. And then you can turn it into something funny. And you're like, thank God that horrible thing happened.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember I was at the stand. You had, there was
Jim.
One,
when he punched an audience member in the stomach?
No, that was another time.
He had a few bruises. Jimmy likes to have a few bruises. You're a Catholic kid. You like to throw a few back.
Irish kids like to just have a few bruises. We just like
to have a few bruises on this podcast.
You know what? There's nothing wrong with it.
Yeah, that's what I said. Yeah, well, Jimmy, when I heard about that, I said, listen, Jimmy's a fucking Irish kid.
Yeah.
From the Midwest.
Who did I punch?
Somebody at Gotham, I thought.
We heard you fucking went into the audience.
Yeah.
And you just
oh, my God. I almost got my ass kicked, too.
No, are you kidding me? You would fucking, no way.
I kicked someone at the comic strip.
Yeah, I brought it up because he kicked somebody in the stomach at the comic strip.
Well, see, that's the thing. It's like, here's my point. My point is, when you're a comedian or in the entertainment industry, but particularly as a comedian, there's a heavy dose of shit that has to be consumed.
Sure.
And there comes times when you're like, okay, lost the flavor for it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like there's people that you'll kiss their ass that are just monsters.
Yeah.
But there comes a point where you're like, nope, no more.
Done with you now.
Yeah.
And so, that has happened.
It happens,
And there's times, you know, it's like, and I'm not proud of it.
Right.
And, you know, I don't think there's anything great about having a temper.
No, well,
but
like you, to me, like you're just like a grounded, like regular guy. Like you understand, like there's a lot of people in our business, maybe not comedians, but like in the entertainment industry that think they're some god or goddess like status because they can act or because they're on a stage, when it's like, really, it's like, you know, I always use that example of Christian Bale when he was yelling at that key grip guy because he was like in his face, like berating him. And it's like, at some point, guy, you keep talking to me like that. It's just man to man. I'm going to punch you right in the fucking face.
Yeah.
It's just like, stop thinking that because you make money or because you'll get hit.
Yeah.
And I just feel like you're a guy like that, where it's like, you would never treat anybody inferior.
No,
Never.
that's what I was about to say. Like,
you know,
the times you probably explored, you were probably right.
Exact. That's what I was going to say.
Like,
probably
by
right.
the way, here's the thing. I was probably right, but I did handle it wrong.
What happens?
So like there's,
you know,
there's
right intention,
like,
wrong move.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's subjective. Maybe,
I mean,
maybe
whatever.
you handled it the right way.
No, yeah.
Maybe
I
the
mean, I
kid
wasn't there, but I bet
I
you
was
the guy
good. I was right. I was
You
good.
fucking were right.
No, because you are.
Guy wants to keep talking, he'll get smoked.
Yeah, I remember like the first time he messaged me, I was like, Jim Gaffigan knows who I am. It was kind of like, you're just a very nice kind of down to earth guy.
But don't you feel like, I mean, this is something I also believe is that all the comedians were all these misfits that like there is kind of like if you kick around for 5 years and you are in this insane pursuit, then you're kind of brothers and sisters anyway.
Sure. Yes.
Yeah.
So like even and that goes back to my initial statement about New York comedy. It's like there are people that like stylistically are completely different, but you would go to the mat for them.
For sure.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And that's kind of it goes along with like that First Amendment stuff. People are like, like when people go, "Oh, yeah, I love that you're so clean." I'm like, look, it just comes out that way. I'm gonna defend someone's right to say anything.
Yeah, it's like even like, when you talk about like, obviously most recent, like the Louis C.K. shit, like whatever you felt about the off the stage shit, it's like when he was at Governor's and they like posted his audio, it's like, I don't care what you think, guy, girl. It's like, that's fucked up. You shouldn't do that at all, because it's like the guy's working shit out and you're trying to squander it. Like, fuck you. Yeah. I mean, that's like comedians just, helping comedians.
It's the Louis thing is so fascinating because I had an interview and I talked to this reporter before and I was like giving him shit. I'm like, you guys can't quit Louis. You can't stop writing about him. And the guy was like a really good sport about it. And I was like, and the point I was making was like, he, point made, like I know that you got to do clicks and stuff like that, but there's a disproportionate amount of articles about him. It's dumb. It's died down a lot. Yeah. And so that was in the article. And my point was like, I was not supporting Louis. I was just making a point that the media was obsessed with Louis. People were furious.
Of course.
Yeah.
Furious.
Of course.
You know what it is?
You're not going to win. You're not so it's like you just might as well say what you want to say and do what you want to do because they're going to hate you anyway.
Yeah, I think a lot of it is it's an illusion if you believe it. A lot of the reason I think Louis dealt with that is because of the way he responded. Like the way he kind of, made a long apology and stuff like that. It's like then you admit like I did something. Like if you didn't commit a crime or, it's like
it's interesting.
You got to kind of own it. And
it's also like what is a public apology? I've always been fascinated with that. It's like
it ruined Tiger
apologize
Woods
to whatever victim, but what you have to publicly for what?
Yeah, I
you
don't know
do shit
you.
to me. I don't fucking know who you are.
It's interesting, like like the Biden thing, because I sit there and I go, like Biden's not going to make it. Like he's gonna,
it's not gonna
let's
happen.
be realistic. Yeah. Like if I don't know him, but if I did, I'd say just don't. Yeah, it's just like
just let Beta Male O'Rourke do it.
You're too much of a target. Yeah, you're too old. You're too kind of like your ways are not going to like float in this kind of savagery that we live in. Yeah, and but I look at like his apology and then he was making jokes about it. And again, I didn't even see the full apology. I didn't see the jokes, but I'm like, it's no win.
Yeah, you're not going to win.
It is no win. No. Like, that's where I'm like, dude, just don't do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, everyone loves you. Yeah. Just stick with that role.
Well, now it's like anything you go into the public eye, especially with politics, like, Kavanaugh, like your life is just ruined. Like that guy, nobody would have said it. Nobody would have came forward if he never wanted to, do the Supreme Court justice. Yeah. But it's like, when you want to do that, man, like, that's why it's like having, being able to be like very famous and have ticket sales, but also have a degree of anonymity is great.
Well,
it's beautiful.
Some of that is because I'm boring. It's just absolute. No, but there's nothing sexy about me. Except for my body.
No, but it's true. Yeah. It's like it's like people. Obviously, what you do is it speaks for itself. But like, people wouldn't be as interested if you said something controversial as fucking, some other comedian that you probably make more money than. But it's just like, so it's like to have your life is beautiful.
Yeah, but you'd be a great guy to drink with because you hold it in the whole time and then you get a couple in, you probably let it fly.
That's what that Irish shit is. Yeah, like,
he starts punching people.
Yeah, like when my mom, she's an Irish drinker. When she moves the vegetables, because she used to keep beers underneath the vegetables. So, because that's where she knew I wouldn't look because I hated vegetables. So when we say my mom drinks, she moves the vegetables. And when she drinks, her opinions start to come out.
Yeah.
And it's because she's a very Catholic woman, goes to church every day.
She
I'm
says the
so
word welfare a
impressed.
lot.
Yeah, but then she starts drinking. She's like, why is my dad, I got to go to work every day to pay for this fucking welfare?
So interesting.
Yeah.
That sounded a little more like Anti Lee.
Oh, and I leave. Yeah. Smoke cigarette.
But I was saying before,
We are sweating in here.
we are sweating.
It's hot in
It's
here,
really
right?
hot. Yeah.
Yeah, let's take our
I guess
shirts
they
off.
can't. I guess they can't do the AC.
You know what the ironic thing is? The three of us are sweating, and Mike Mush, who's heavier than all of us, is just dry as a lamb.
Well, I'll tell you what. Yeah, but you're not sitting by him. I'll tell you, he is breathing heavy. Holy shit! All I hear, I'm like, hey, can you not do that into the mic? Cuz we got Gaffigan on.
But every time I have watched Jim, it's like you make me laugh so hard. He's so funny. Obviously, everyone knows that. But it's like there was this one bit. It was probably like a new bit too. You were working out about massage, about how. And it was brilliant. It's like the simplest observation that nobody ever thought of, but that's true. It's like, and it just is so funny. It's like, yeah, we have to go pay someone
Oh yeah,
to touch us because the ones who love us the most will do it for like 3 seconds and be like, my arm hurts. And it's like,
Yeah.
It's funny.
I was fucking dying laughing. It's so true.
Oh,
Yeah.
thanks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just, it's like, wow, like,
Well, it's classic bits. The bacon bit.
yeah, but
and,
like when you think about that, it's like every girlfriend I've ever had. I mean, like, can you
Yeah, it
scratch
makes
my
you
back?
think.
They're like, no.
Yeah.
And then you have to literally, what is it about getting a massage that the people who love you the most don't want to do it?
People that like if you lost them, your life would be over.
Yeah,
But you can't massage them.
yeah, you can't.
It doesn't make any sense whatsoever.
What's
It's
what
wild.
What do you think like you would ever in your career? I mean, it's because you got so many fans. Would you ever just do like a bit like that's not clean? Would you ever like just think about like just
Jesus
doing a
wouldn't
dirty
let
album?
me. Jesus would not let me.
He's a vessel for the
no,
Lord.
Because you weren't always clean, right? When you first started, you would just say whatever.
Well, some of it is like, look, I think that comedy is all about, it's all self-assignment, right?
Right.
We're always kind of like, I'm going to tell this story. But it's some of it is a perception game. It's like if you look at some of my material, I've done material that maybe it's not filthy. Maybe it's not like a blowjob with tickle the balls or anything like that. But, like I've had whole chunks on cancer where people are like, there are people in audiences that have come up to me afterwards and been like, that's not cool.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it is, but you have to like, it's like any relationship. You have to keep things interesting. You can't have the exact same conversation with people.
That's what I love. That's why, again, more inspirational comedy for me because you're clean but edgy. You're not like
thanks.
you're like clean and edgy, which is like that's very, very hard to do.
But it is also one of those things where I think I don't know, it's weird because like some of it is like it's functionality. Like I had filthy stuff, I wouldn't say filthy stuff, but I had like character-y stuff that was really maybe blue that was good, but then in my set, I couldn't follow it. Do you know what I mean? So like I would have like this filthy joke, but then after that, I couldn't really talk about mini muffins.
Right.
People were like, weren't you just talking about having sex with a donkey?
Yeah.
So some of it is like if you're building an hour show and it's it's like Hannah Gatsby does it.
Yeah.
No, but you know what I mean? It's like if you're building a show, it's gotta, and by the way, I do think there are people that can go dirty and then go really kind of, detail-y, Chappelle can do that. Chris Rock can do that. But, I think generally humans want, it's blood and lust. People want blood and lust. So like it's once you go in there.
Yeah.
Then you can't sit there and go, isn't it interesting how doorknobs turn to the right and not the left? You know what I mean? It's like no one gives a shit after you've discussed like filth.
It's like the MC who goes on, the MC who does all crowd work and it's filthy crowd work and fucking annihilates.
Yeah, it's the worst.
It's like even famous comedians couldn't handle it, couldn't follow it because like that's not what the crowd wants.
Yeah.
Well, it's also like if a conversation has been established with the audience where the audience is like, I'm participating.
Yeah.
Then you get up there and you're asking rhetorical questions and they're like, I'll respond.
Yeah. That's what. Yeah. One of the first times I saw you in a small room, you had an edgy joke. It was so funny and quick. You went, hey, like, it's just like too many celebrities now. You're like, we're just gonna have to go. Hey, you got to go back to being a whore. It was like, I think it was the era of like Nicole Richie and the Hilton sisters. And you're like, hey, no, you're just going to go back.
But that's so true though, right?
It is true. Yeah.
It is.
Yeah. Because you're famous, but really, essentially, you're a whore.
I tried to do something about how, and the thing is like, I also like, I think that this is me nerding out, but I think there's an aftertaste to comedy too, that like anger is great. But having a point is more insightful. So like, you know, I don't want to do us and them. I don't want to do like, those people are pricks.
Yeah.
Which is, by the way, there's nothing wrong with that, except for like, I don't want people to be like, because everyone has that funny, queenie friend that's like, whether it's a man or a woman, that's really bitchy. But after you hang around them, you're like, like you feel kind of dirty. You're like, wait a minute, I was making fun of a mentally disabled, or I was laughing at a joke about a mentally disabled
I get
person.
exactly what you mean.
So it's like, and the aftertaste is kind of important. Now I just sound like a pompous fool.
No,
it's not.
So it's like there is some of the comedy, like I don't want it to be us and them. Like I remember seeing that when I was coming up, where people would be like, these stupid people that believe in God. You know what I mean? Like I didn't want to do that, or I didn't want to be these stupid people that are going to hell. It's like you can communicate it. And that's why, you know, I often make myself the target.
Yeah.
Sure.
Or Russians.
Yeah. Well, you know, some of it, I think, don't you think some of it's a progression too? Because when you're a young comic, you're a little more arrogant. So you're going, they're dumb. Then you get older, you realize, oh, nobody knows what's going on. We're all stupid. Nobody knows.
By the way, the arrogance of every generation of humans is astounding.
Yeah.
It's just like, we got to figure it out.
Yeah.
We finally got to figure it out. We put leeches on people and that heals them. It's insane.
Yeah. But on the flip side, it is like the audaciousness of a few people who do go for it and figure it out. And then like,
and by the way, those people, I think like politics for me, my views are so kind of flexible, and I'm like, I don't know, I am for people to have these rights, and I am for people to like, I don't hunt, but people should be allowed to hunt. You know what I mean? So it's like, that's some of why I don't want to like stick my head in there, because I might change. Like, I love talking with friends because I love having friends like Ted Alexandro and Tom Shalhoub. Like, those are the two guys that have
polar
opened for me.
opposites politically.
Completely opposite. One's Occupy Wall Street and one's a Fox News guy. And it's like, I love having those. And with both of them, I'm like, yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
Well, it's true, because
you're
like
reasonable.
A reasonable person lives in the gray zone. He just leans one way, but he really lives in the fucking gray zone.
Which, if we were going to sum up the kind of zeitgeist right now, I think that's really that person, that perspective is not celebrated right now. It's like that. It used to be.
Yeah,
it used to be. Your dad was a Republican because he owned a business. Your mom was a Democrat because she lived off of him, and it was no big deal.
Yeah,
now it's like,
you got to be extreme.
Yeah, if you're like a Republican and you tell Democrats you're Republican, like, you white supremacist Nazi, you got Mexican babies in your basement.
Yeah, it's better to be like us.
There's a strange orthodoxy that like is kind of like, it's a litmus test.
Yeah.
On both sides. It's like, I think we associate it more with Republicans, like Republican only in name, but like, I'm glad I don't peddle in that, because people are always getting tossed aside. Not enough.
People are too extreme now. The extremes have become the norm. It's wild.
We got to be like every guy in this room. Like we say, we're relatively straight and we lean gay.
It's what it is.
It's what it is. We lean gay.
And not me.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I mean,
Jesus.
but you look gay.
I know. I feel gay, to be honest with you.
You're just a together good looking kid.
Yeah. Well, I told you, we've talked about this. I have sex with women, but I fall in love with men.
Yeah.
Like, I'm stimulated by a conversation with a few guys, but I want to have sex with a girl.
So this convo's turning you on?
Yeah.
A little bit,
Yes. Bunch of sweaty guys talking about ancient India. Fuck yeah.
Fuck yeah.
Yo, say it Incas one more time.
Incas.
Fuck, I'm to explode.
Now, you're 100% Irish, right?
I mean, come on. What kind of question
total
is that?
Midwestern mutt.
Yeah. You got a little German in there?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, like, it's, by the way, there's a lot of German in America, but like after World War II, We were talking about
Yeah,
this
I'm
last
70%.
night. And everyone was like, yeah, I'm Irish.
That's hilarious. Yeah.
You know, all of Cincinnati
That's
used to have like German street names, St. Louis too. And then after World War II, they're like, we're going to change the names.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hi, my name is O'Hanlon now.
Yeah.
No more Heisenfuschen.
Yeah. I watched that show on Amazon. What's it called when if the Germans would have won World War II? Man in the High Castle. I watched Man in the High Castle, and they were saying like if the Germans would have won in the show, there were concentration camps in Cincinnati, and I was like, that's so random to pick that city. But then I googled, and they had the biggest German population before the war, while the war was going on. Even there was just the U.S. government was constantly watching Cincinnati to see if there's any fucking Nazi uprising.
But you love that show. You want the Germans to have won.
Yeah, he's a German.
No, I did a tweet about that. I love that show. I don't love like what it says, but
Chris is mostly German.
Yeah,
he's
mostly
a German.
Yeah, German. Yeah. Just German Ridgewood kid. Shout out Rudy's Bakery, Ridgewood, Queens.
Yeah.
Lindsay Tarts. You got good Lindsay Tarts.
Yeah, when you said you were a Midwestern mud, I was going like, yeah, but there's no Puerto Rican in there. We're talking German and Irish.
It's all white bread.
Yeah.
It's all English.
Yeah.
Well, there's probably English.
Yeah.
You know what's weird is like America, so English. I mean, we're speaking English now, but like you never meet them. You meet rarely someone who's like, I'm English.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah,
like
right.
there should be like at least half of them.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, like even like the girl that I met last night, like I'm fascinated by her British accent. It's like, why aren't there more of you here? I'm like, where? She's like, yeah. She's like, we have like a little English community here. We all know each other. I'm like, why is it little? You used to all be here.
Yeah.
It's weird.
I think
That's the
kinda
Brexit thing, probably.
Yeah.
And part of them, I think they still think they're kind of better than us.
Yep.
Yeah. Well,
So they
guess
have their
what?
little
You're
crew.
not.
Yeah, they go there and they watch soccer and they think that that's some sort of elevated
and
culture.
they say to call a
They
football.
wear like those really collared shirts.
And then they call us racist, but
Yeah.
then they're throwing things at I mean,
Yeah,
you know,
anytime- like
America's great. I'm a patriot.
Yeah, me too. Build the wall.
Well, Bill Burr has a great joke about how like, I mean, it's just a comment how like London is the most sophisticated place, and then you just go outside of London, and it might as well be Alabama.
Oh, dude.
It's true.
I was in Manchester. I mean, like they just want to fight you after a certain time. It's like 3 o'clock, you're safe, but like, is it like 9 p.m.? Everyone's drinking and everyone's looking to fight you.
I love Scotland too.
It's so fascinating. It's so. I did a show in London, and then I went to Israel, and it was so interesting to do London, and you think, oh, and then you go to Israel, but like the most tribal place that I was of the two was in London, because it was almost like around 11 o'clock, to your point, where it was just like, then people just, all right.
Yeah.
Like it was like everyone's very polite. And then at 11 o'clock, like a light switch goes on and people are like, all right, back to being the savages we were.
They're like gremlins.
And I loved it.
Yeah.
It was fascinating how I mean, that's why I love international shows is like the English around 11 o'clock, they just turn into something else.
Do you think the amount you've traveled, do you think people are more the same, or they did like, what have you learned? What perspective have you gained from meeting all these different types
That's a
of
deep
people?
question. That's a great question right there.
Besides the fact that whites are superior.
I would say,
We'll edit that
I
out.
think it's,
We'll just give it away.
Wei Songxian.
There we
Yeah.
go. Wei Songxian. Yeah.
We'd have this button. Wei Zhongxian was a famous eunuch in the actually ancient Chinese Empire.
Yeah.
And anytime we say anything wild, we just hit the Wei Zhongxian button.
It means we're joking.
And it means we're joking.
Yeah.
And it kind of just designates us to say whatever
It just
we want.
washes away what we said.
Yeah.
there you go.
Yeah, it's just
No,
what it is.
if there's something unifying, I would say, I think that I think I'm probably more of a capitalist than I thought I would be. That's one thing I learned.
Interesting. Ted Alexandro's not going to like that.
No. Well, that's but that's not
Occupy
to say
Jim Gaffigan.
that's not to say that I don't believe in socialist programs, but I think that you go to some countries and like, I mean, even doing shows in countries where, there's parts of Canada where I'm like, hey, you guys ever heard of like a convenience store? Like, it's just like, and it's great people, great, but it's just like, like if there was some financial, and some of it's garbage, but I like convenience.
Yeah. Me too.
But I go to some countries and I'm like, we should kind of like we could fix this up.
Yeah.
Right.
Do you know what I mean?
Right.
But a unifying factor, I don't know. I think that I don't know. I think that there's no unifying factor. I think it's all going to go into a toilet.
But do you think we're more the same? Do you think culture is just kind of something that happens because of the environment, the area? Some people manipulate people to believe certain shit, but underneath, we're all kids who just want to get our noodle wet and have a couple laughs. And
I think it's that.
Yeah.
I think, well, going around and glancing at the history or having the context of history, it's amazing how impressionable humans are. And they're not aware of it.
Interesting.
So you go to Germany, you go to Japan, you go to China, you go to all these places, and you're like, oh, we're dumb idiots.
Yeah.
Like that's a universal thing. Like no one is beyond. Like, it's like Handmaid's Tale. Like people are like, Handmaid's Tale could never happen. But you go around the world and you're like, yeah, I guess that could.
Yeah.
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 It's not far.
We have an expression in the podcast. He's basically saying people are fucking stupid.
People are Franks and beans and fucking stupid.
Yeah.
And it's true. Jimmy, thank you so much for coming through. We really appreciate you having you. It really was an honor. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
You got to post on social media to help us out.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, sure. That's why you have people.
Yeah.
It's funny about Jim. Like, usually we'll be like, you got any dates coming up? It's like,
yeah,
people know where they can see it, and it will be full.
Yeah.
You don't need this podcast to help you move tickets.
Yeah.
No, you send the email. You know what? That really worked. Because this is what happened. That really worked. Can you post it one more time?
Yeah. You're fucking crushing it. All right. Thank you, Jimmy.
Thank you, Gaffigan.